Let me introduce myself. My name is Clara, and I work as a senior project manager at Sterling and Company, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the city. Well, at least I didn't till yesterday morning when everything changed. I'm 32 years old, have been with the company for 6 years, and during that time, I've poured my heart and soul into every project that came across my desk. This particular story begins on a Tuesday morning, just like any other, but it would end up being the day that would alter the course of my career. I remember walking into the office at 7:30 a.m., coffee in hand, feeling particularly proud of the proposal I had spent the last 3 months perfecting. It was an innovative approach to client engagement that I believed could revolutionize how our firm handled mid-sized accounts. The idea had come to me during a late-night brainstorming session, and I had worked tirelessly to develop it into something tangible, something that could make a real difference, not just for our clients, but for our entire department. My direct manager, Mr. Thompson, had been unusually quiet about the project during our weekly check-ins. While he hadn't explicitly discouraged me, his lack of enthusiasm was palpable. Still, I pressed on, convinced that once he saw the final presentation, he would understand its potential. I had even stayed late several nights, running simulations and gathering data to support my claims. The numbers were undeniable. This project could increase client retention by 20% while reducing operational costs by 15%. As I settled into my cubicle that morning, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. The meeting with Mr. Thompson was scheduled for 10 a.m., and I had spent the previous evening rehearsing my presentation. Everything was ready. The slides were polished, the data was organized, and my notes were meticulously prepared. I had even practiced my delivery in front of the mirror, making sure to hit all the key points with confidence and clarity. The hours leading up to the meeting passed in a blur of final preparations. I double-checked my figures, reviewed my talking points, and made sure my laptop was fully charged. At precisely 9:55 a.m., I gathered my materials and headed toward the conference room where Mr. Thompson was waiting. As I walked down the hallway, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a mixture of excitement and nervous energy coursing through my veins. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was to think that hard work and dedication alone would be enough to convince someone like Mr. Thompson. He was a traditionalist, someone who valued established methods over innovation, and I should have anticipated his resistance to change. But at that moment, standing outside the conference room door, I still believed that my proposal would speak for itself, that the strength of my ideas would be enough to win him over. When I entered the room, Mr. Thompson was already seated at the head of the table, his usual stern expression fixed firmly in place. "Good morning, Clara," he said without looking up from his papers. "Let's get started." His tone was clipped, businesslike, and gave no indication of what was to come. I took a deep breath, set up my laptop, and began my presentation, determined to make him see the value in my work. As I launched into my presentation, I could feel my confidence growing with each passing minute. The data was compelling, the projections were solid, and my delivery was smooth and professional. I watched Mr. Thompson's face carefully, searching for any sign of approval or interest. But his expression remained unchanged, his eyes scanning the documents in front of him rather than focusing on my presentation. "Let's look at slide 4, I continued, projecting the graph that showed our potential market expansion. As you can see, implementing this strategy could open up new revenue streams while simultaneously improving client satisfaction. I paused, waiting for some form of acknowledgement, but Mr. Thompson simply turned another page in his file. The air in the conference room seemed to grow heavier with each passing minute. I pushed forward, highlighting the cost-benefit analysis and the detailed implementation plan I had developed. When I reached the section about potential risks, I noticed Mr. Thompson finally looked up, but his expression wasn't one of interest. It was more like disappointment. "Clara," he interrupted, setting his pen down with a decisive click. "I appreciate the effort you've put into this, but I'm afraid it's fundamentally flawed." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "You're trying to reinvent the wheel here. Our current processes are tried and tested. Clients expect consistency, not radical changes." "But Mr. Thompson," I stammered, trying to maintain my composure, "the data shows significant improvements across multiple metrics. We could be leaders in client experience innovation." I gestured toward the projections on the screen, willing him to see what I saw. He shook his head firmly. Innovation isn't always the answer. Sometimes sticking to what works is the smarter choice. Besides, this proposal lacks practical application. It's too theoretical, too ambitious for our current capabilities. His voice carried a finality that made my stomach churn. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks as I struggled to defend months of work. But we've successfully implemented similar changes before. Remember the digital transformation project 2 years ago? This builds on those foundations. That was different, he dismissed, waving his hand as if swatting away an annoying fly. This is just a collection of pie-in-the-sky ideas. You need to go back to the drawing board. Start again with something more grounded, more aligned with our existing strategies. The room seemed to shrink around me as his words sank in. All those late nights, all those weekends spent perfecting every detail, dismissed in a matter of minutes. I wanted to argue further, to present counterpoints, but something in his demeanor told me it would be futile. Instead, I nodded mechanically, gathering my materials while fighting back tears of frustration. As I stood to leave, he added, almost as an afterthought, "And next time maybe run your ideas by me before investing so much time in them." We wouldn't want a repeat of this situation. The way he emphasized situation made it clear he viewed my efforts as nothing more than a waste of company resources. Walking back to my desk felt like moving through molasses. Each step weighed heavily with disappointment and anger. I slumped into my chair, staring blankly at my computer screen while colleagues bustled around me, oblivious to my turmoil. The rejection wasn't just professional, it felt personal, as if everything I stood for as a project manager had been deemed inadequate. For the rest of the afternoon, I mechanically went through the motions of work, answering emails and attending meetings. But my mind kept circling back to Mr. Thompson's critique. Was I really that out of touch with the company's direction? Had I misjudged the practicality of my proposal? The questions gnawed at me, threatening to erode the confidence I had built over years in the industry. By late afternoon, I found myself staring at the blinking cursor on a blank document, supposedly starting over on a new proposal. But my mind kept drifting to the original project. There was value in those ideas. I knew it with every fiber of my being. The market research supported it, the client feedback validated it, and my own instinct screamed that I was onto something important. Yet here I was expected to abandon months of work and start from scratch. As I sat there, lost in thought, my phone buzzed with a notification. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was just another email from corporate. But when I finally glanced at the screen, my heart skipped a beat. It was a message from LinkedIn, a connection request from someone at Harrison Group, one of the top consulting firms in the country. They were known for their innovative approaches and willingness to challenge conventional wisdom in business practices. The timing couldn't have been more ironic. Here I was being told my ideas were too ambitious, while one of the most forward-thinking firms in the industry was reaching out. My fingers hovered over the accept button as 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. Should I ignore it? Was this just a coincidence? Or could this be the opportunity one needed to prove the worth of my rejected proposal? The weight of the decision pressed down on me. On one hand, responding to Harrison Group felt like an act of defiance against Mr. Thompson's judgment. On the other hand, it represented validation, the possibility that my ideas might find a home where they'd be appreciated and nurtured. I stared at the notification for what felt like an eternity, torn between loyalty to Sterling and Company and the temptation to explore what might lie beyond its walls. Just as I was about to close the app, another notification popped up, this time a direct message from the same contact at Harrison Group. "We've been following your work," it read. "Your recent publications on client engagement strategies caught our attention. Would love to discuss potential opportunities with you." My hands trembled as I read the words. They had been following my work? How? I hadn't published anything recently unless... Suddenly it clicked. The internal blog posts I had written for Sterling and Company, the ones Mr. Thompson had dismissed as unnecessary self-promotion, must have somehow made their way to Harrison Group. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very content my manager had criticized was now opening doors I never imagined possible. I minimized the message window and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling tiles above me. The contrast between my current situation and this unexpected opportunity was stark. Here I was being told to conform to traditional methods, while one of the most innovative firms in the industry was knocking on my virtual door. The universe seemed to be presenting me with a choice, though I wasn't sure I was ready to make it. The remainder of the workday passed in a haze of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to march into Mr. Thompson's office and show him the message, to prove that my ideas had merit beyond his narrow perspective. Another part of me wanted to keep it secret, to savor this small victory privately before deciding what to do next. By the time I packed up my things to leave, I still hadn't responded to the message from Harrison Group. On my way home, I stopped at my favorite coffee shop, needing a moment to process everything that had happened. As I sat by the window watching the city lights flicker to life, I pulled out my phone again. The message from Harrison Group stared back at me, a beacon of possibility in an otherwise dark day. I opened my laptop and began reviewing my old proposal, seeing it through fresh eyes. What if Mr. Thompson was wrong? What if my ideas really could revolutionize client engagement, not just at Sterling and Company, but across the entire industry? The more I thought about it, the more certain I became that I couldn't let this opportunity pass me by. But engaging with Harrison Group would mean taking a risk, possibly burning bridges at my current job. Could I handle the consequences if things didn't work out? As I sipped my coffee, I realized that this moment represented more than just a career decision. It was about proving to myself that my vision mattered, that my ability to innovate and think differently was valuable. The rejection from Mr. Thompson had hurt deeply, but it had also ignited something within me, a determination to prove that sometimes thinking outside the box was exactly what companies needed to stay ahead. I opened a new document on my laptop and began drafting a response to Harrison Group. Not a simple acceptance, but a carefully crafted message that would showcase my expertise while leaving room for negotiation. As I typed, I felt a surge of energy I hadn't experienced all day. For the first time since my meeting with Mr. Thompson, I felt in control of my destiny. When I finally arrived home, my apartment felt different, charged with possibility. I placed my laptop on the kitchen table and stared at the half-finished response to Harrison Group. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions to make, but for now, I allowed myself to feel hopeful. After all, sometimes rejection isn't the end of the road, it's just the beginning of a new journey. The clock on my wall ticked steadily, marking the passage of time, but my mind was racing ahead, considering all the possibilities that lay before me. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would test my resolve, challenge my beliefs, and ultimately shape the course of my career in ways I couldn't yet imagine. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose that had been missing for weeks. The weight of Mr. Thompson's rejection still lingered, but it no longer felt suffocating. Instead, it fueled me, a reminder that sometimes the people who doubt you are the ones holding outdated beliefs. As I got ready for work, I glanced at my phone and saw the draft response to Harrison Group sitting in my email app. My fingers hovered over the send button, but I hesitated. This wasn't just about proving Mr. Thompson wrong. This was about taking control of my career and stepping into a future where my ideas could thrive. I decided to take one more day before responding. First, I needed clarity on what I wanted, not just professionally but personally. Was I willing to leave Sterling and Company, the company I'd poured 6 years of my life into? Could I handle the uncertainty of starting fresh somewhere else? These questions swirled in my mind as I walked into the office, trying to act normal despite the storm brewing inside me. At 9:30 a.m., I received an unexpected email from corporate headquarters. It was an invitation to present my rejected proposal at an internal innovation summit scheduled for the following week. Apparently, someone higher up had reviewed my documents and thought they deserved another look. My stomach flipped. Here was a chance to redeem myself within the company, to show Mr. Thompson and others like him that my ideas weren't too ambitious or unrealistic. But there was also something bittersweet about it. If I accepted this opportunity, would I be settling? Would I be letting fear keep me tethered to a place that didn't fully appreciate me? For the rest of the day, I wrestled with these thoughts. By lunchtime, I couldn't focus on anything else, so I ducked out early and went to my favorite park nearby. Sitting on a bench under a sprawling oak tree, I pulled out my laptop and opened 2 tabs, one with the draft email to Harrison Group and the other with details about the Innovation Summit. Both represented vastly different paths forward, each with its own risks and rewards. As I sat there, lost in thought, a young girl approached me with her mother. She pointed at my laptop screen and said excitedly, "Are you working on something important?" Her innocence caught me off guard. I smiled and nodded. "Yeah, I guess you could say that." "What is it?" she asked curiously. "It's a big decision," I replied, surprising myself with how much truth I revealed to a stranger. Her mother chuckled softly and apologized for interrupting, but the girl persisted. "Well, if it's important, then you should do the thing that makes your heart happy. That's what my teacher says." Her words struck a chord deep within me. For so long, I'd been chasing validation from Mr. Thompson, from Sterling and Company, from anyone who might acknowledge my hard work. But when had I last stopped to ask myself what I truly wanted? What made my heart happy? By the time I returned to the office, I knew what I had to do. I spent the evening refining my email to Harrison Group, ensuring every word conveyed not only my expertise, but also my passion for innovation. When I finally hit send, a wave of relief washed over me. Whatever happened next, I had taken the first step toward creating a future aligned with my values. The response came faster than I expected. Within hours, Harrison Group expressed interest in discussing potential roles tailored to my skill set. They admire my vision and believed it aligned perfectly with their mission to push boundaries in client engagement strategies. We scheduled a meeting for later that week, and suddenly everything felt possible again. Meanwhile, I prepared for the Innovation Summit at Sterling and Company, determined to give my proposal the best presentation it deserved. On the day of the event, I stood confidently in front of senior executives, pitching my ideas with renewed vigor. To my surprise, the room erupted in applause when I finished. Several leaders approached me afterward, praising the depth of my research and the creativity of my approach. Even Mr. Thompson offered a grudging nod of approval, though he avoided direct eye contact. But as gratifying as that moment was, it didn't change the fact that my heart now belonged elsewhere. A few days later, I met with Harrison Group and was offered a leadership position overseeing a team dedicated to pioneering new client engagement models. The role was everything I dreamed of, an environment where innovation wasn't just encouraged but celebrated. Leaving Sterling and Company wasn't easy. I'd formed meaningful relationships there, and walking away meant saying goodbye to colleagues who had become friends. But as I packed up my desk on my final day, I realized I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I was carrying lessons learned, skills honed, and a newfound confidence in my ability to create change. On my first day at Harrison Group, I walked into a sleek, modern office buzzing with energy. My new team greeted me warmly, eager to hear about the project I'd championed at my previous company. As I shared my story, the rejection, the validation, the leap of faith, I saw their eyes light up with excitement. They understood what I had gone through because many of them had faced similar challenges in their careers. Over the next year, we transformed my original proposal into a groundbreaking initiative that redefined client engagement across multiple industries. Our success earned recognition not just within Harrison Group, but throughout the business community. And while I took pride in our achievements, the most fulfilling part was knowing I'd stayed true to myself, choosing courage over comfort, growth over stagnation. Looking back, I realized Mr. Thompson's rejection hadn't been the end of my story. It had been the catalyst for something far greater. Sometimes the moments that feel like failures are actually redirections pointing us toward our true path. For me, that path led to a place where my ideas weren't just accepted, they were celebrated, where my voice mattered, and where my heart was happiest.